Welcome back to So You Want to Be a Writer with me, Peter Snell, and
me, Ros Morris. Peter's a bookseller and I'm a writer, also a writing coach and an editor. So between us, I think we sort of know what we're talking about.
well, I know some of the things I'm talking about.
Well,
a lot of them not. And actually that's really what today is about. We're talking about social media. I use it a bit, but not as much as Ros, because I know you've got lots of blogs and bits and pieces and things all over the place. So perhaps you'd explain to us exactly what's going on there.
Yes, I've got... I'm just counting in my head now because I have got quite a lot of websites. I've got a website for me as a writer. I've got a website for each novel I've written because I can decorate them with the livery of the novel so that it looks like the novel's cover, and I can put up information that might be of interest to people who like the book. And I've got two blogs. One of them is my main blog. It's a writing blog. It's a blog of writing advice and also publishing advice. Just anything that I feel might be useful to share with people who are writing and seeking publishing deals or wondering about self-publishing, all those sorts of things. So that's one blog I've got. And the other blog I've got is actually on the website of my first novel, and that's a series that you've probably heard me mention from time to time called The Undercover Soundtrack, which is a creative series I've got. So I've got quite a few different blogs and websites. They're sort of my online homes. I think of them as that's like being able. It's a place I can invite people back to and say, okay, this is all stuff I'm interested in, stuff I do. So it's like it gives me a presence in the virtual world.
So a lot of people listening to this will know a bit about writing. They may know something about social media, about Facebook and Twitter and blogs and things like that, but not everybody will. Can you tell me exactly what you think a blog is?
Well, a blog is, if we're being really correct about it, blog is supposed to be short for web log, which is like a kind of diary. They're usually quite informal places where you can put up writing, and you put them on publicly accessible places so anyone could in theory find you. So it's like a sort of, it can be a shop window for your books, or it can be just a sort of ongoing column that you write. Think of it actually a bit like a newspaper columnist, where you've got somebody who writes about maybe their life, or maybe their life with a particular slant to it. If they're a doctor, say, they might write about being a doctor. So the blogs tend to be less formal than the newspaper columns. So
I get the idea. It's a sort of an online diary with little bits and pieces.
It might be little bits, it might be long bits, it might be pictures.
Is there also a feedback element in it, that the people who are reading it can make comments and feedback to you as well?
Yes, there is. You usually they usually try to write posts that will generate comments, so people will say, hopefully they'll say, oh, nice piece, or they might say, oh, I tried to do that and it didn't work out well for me. I'm glad you've explained how this will be useful. Or they might say, oh, I disagree. I think that the best way to bake scones is, depending on what you're writing about. So yes, you encourage feedback and discussion. So
when you're established, you can use it to keep in contact with your fans.
Yes.
Keep them up to date, give them little snippets of news, little bits of trivia, all that sort of thing. But you can also use it, presumably, to build up a fan base in the early days of a book or something like that.
Yes, writers use them for all sorts of things. And I mean, if I think about what having a blog has done for me, it's actually, over the years, enabled me to build a career in writing as myself, and that's quite an astonishing thing that this simple tool has enabled me to do. Before I started blogging, I had literary agents. I'd done quite a bit of ghostwriting, but I didn't have my name out there. I didn't have books out with my name on. I didn't have any way of really meeting other people who might like my writing. Having a blog gave me a way of meeting people as me, and without the intermediary of all the various steps you might have to go through in the publishing industry. So I didn't have to be introduced by an agent who would introduce me to an editor. I could actually just go round and find other people's blogs, leave comments on them. They would then think, oh, who's she? Come back and investigate me, and we'd get talking. And from that, now this was, I started in 2009, it's now 2015, but from that, I just very gradually built up a network of people who enjoyed my articles, and I enjoyed theirs, and it's led to a lot of opportunities.
That's really interesting, because you're talking about using blogs from the point of view of being a writer. There are people who just write blogs and have become famous and well known for writing blogs.
Yes.
And some of those have had the blogs taken on by publishers and published as books.
Yes.
I mean, and that's sort of the other side, the complete flip side of that same coin.
Yes, there was a
so
wine
it can work both
taster
ways.
Who I saw at a conference. And I'm trying to remember the name of her blog, but she was a wine taster, and then she had her first child, and she was stuck at home thinking, oh, I want to do something to just keep my toe in the water. And so she started blogging, and it was wine tasting notes, but wine tasting notes that anybody would be able to understand.
Yeah.
And do you know her? Because she did actually get this picked up by a publisher, and it became a book.
Yes, I can't remember the details. I know the one you mean.
Yes.
And there's the most well-known case is probably Belle de Jour. But there was also Shadow in Tiger Country.
Oh, what's that? What a lovely name.
Again, I've forgotten the author's name. If anyone wants to get it later, email me, contact me through the radio station or whatever. It's several years ago now, a young couple's had a dreadful trauma in their lives. The wife developed brain cancer, and she kept a diary, an online blog diary, of her treatment of her daily life. HarperCollins saw it, picked it up, and wanted to do it as a book. She died before the book was ready, so her husband, her widower, took it on.
Gosh.
And finished it off. And it's an extraordinary piece of work. I'll try and find you a copy.
Yes, yes.
Shadow in Tiger Country.
Wow. There are quite a lot of blogs that I've seen that follow that pattern, actually. People sharing a journey into the unknown. It's a very good use of blogging because it's so immediate, and I know from writing blogs, and I'm just writing about something that's not nearly as life changing, but the feedback that you get from people who read, and they come to you and they say, oh, you've helped me do something, in my case, or with the Undercover soundtrack, somebody might leave a note saying, I loved this piece, it just really spoke to me, I'm going to go and find the book by the writer. So there's this contact, and that's one of the real magical things about social media, and blogging is one part of social media.
Yes, I did run a blog for the shop for a while, but it got too difficult doing the constant input to it, so I've let that slide. Perhaps I'll look at building that back up again. It
is quite a commitment.
It's a tie, isn't it?
Because you have to actually keep it fresh. People come back and look at a blog, and if they see it's regularly updated, they're more likely to become regular readers if they like it. But if they see the last post was 2 years ago or 6 months ago even, they'll think, oh, well, is this person ever even visiting again?
Yes, I mean, there's another prime example, Kathy Brett, who I think you know, local author, who has written teenage and young adult books. But she runs blogs and interaction bits online for all the books, all the characters in the book, so you could actually speak to some of the characters and things like that. So she's taken that to a huge degree, and in fact expanded her books out into social media.
Some people do that.
So
yes.
that's another way of doing it. But you were saying, apart from blogs, you've got websites as well.
Yes, well, really, I've built them from blogs. We'll talk in the second half about how to do all this. But yes, they're effectively made from blogs. They're just I don't put ongoing posts on them. I've just got information, so it's speaking that I've done, teaching that I've done, what my books are, where to find them, why I write what I write. So it's all quite standard information that people might want.
But then you also involve yourself in Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus. Anything else?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Pinterest. What else am I on? I'm on Tumblr, but my blog is fed to Tumblr, so I actually don't have to do anything there. It just automatically goes there. But yes, I'm...
Okay, some of this is going over my head now.
Well, some of it I don't use that often. I'm on Google Plus because it gives you an advantage in Google searches, but I don't really use it very much. I'm not an expert on Google Plus, but I do use Facebook and Twitter a lot, and they're my two favourites. And
you're using this to advertise your books, your services?
Not so much advertising, and I think that's one of the mistakes that people make. They think that when they get on these, particularly if they've gone onto these sites for business reasons, or they want to build up a following for their writing, they think they've got to be advertising all the time, but actually that just turns people off. The way I think you have to consider social media is it's more like a cocktail party where you're thrown into this big room and you could meet anybody and you could talk to them, but the thing you must do first of all, before you start really talking about yourself and what you do, is just get curious about other people. And by doing that, it's a really long-term thing. And although it's instant, and although it seems trivial, what you do is you build up long-term relationships just by chatting to people who look interesting to you.
Yes, I don't really understand the logic of this, but Twitter keeps saying to me that you're doing really well. What you've got to do now is follow more people.
Well, Twitter's never told me anything like that.
Oh, it tells me things like that.
They don't tell me I'm doing well.
Oh, well, perhaps they don't need
perhaps
to.
They don't think
perhaps
I am.
It's so obvious to you. Perhaps they're trying to encourage me I'm not doing well and they're using a bit of positive reinforcement. But so they keep trying to encourage me to follow more people.
We'll get into that, the mechanics of it later, but something I'd like to touch on is what all this social media has done for me so far. And as I said, I've used it to build a writing career, really, as myself, because I found that when I signed up with agents, that although my books were good, they didn't have places to sell them. So I was just out on my own trying to make contact with people. And certainly since joining, blogging was a good start, but I really started to meet a lot more people when I joined Twitter. And
when you say meet people, you mean online?
Online, yes, but but you do end up feeling like you know them really well. And there are people who I've met online and they've become good friends. And there was one who's become a sort of mentor who I go to him to ask, considering doing this, what do you think? Or what do I do about such and such? And he's one of the people I ask. And
so it's not just advertising and building a following. It's actually a tool.
It's a tool for making friends. It's like pen pals. The post used to be how we did it. But now, because we can talk to anybody, we can find people who, first of all, we might be interested in their work or in the things they post about, or pictures that they happen to put up, or anything like that, or articles that they said they liked. You might get into a conversation like that. But sometimes you get people come up who say, I really like your work, and they just get talking to you. And gradually, the key here is everything has to be gradual with social media, because it's like making friends. But gradually you build up people who do become quite just as significant as the people who you've struck friendships with, meeting them face to face. And I've also done work as a result of this. I've been invited on radio shows.
Right.
I've made training products for writers. I've been interviewed by people, and then those interviews got into their network, and from that, people came to me asking them to edit their books.
I understand you're even going to Venice, or...
Yes, I'm doing, and that's because people heard this radio show.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's
Yes.
good. I mean, what I think was fascinating about this is that we keep getting feedback from people all over the world who hear the show, in Australia and America and Canada.
Yes. It's truly a world wide web.
Yeah.
It really is. You could talk to anyone. You could meet anyone, and you could start up relationships with people who will be not just sort of online friends, but actually real friends, but you don't happen to ever meet them face to face. But they're still, they still can be very significant to you. So it's very, very powerful. And with writing being available, well, with books being available so much online, saving your presence, but they are. This is how people generally more and more find out about books. It makes all the more sense to just see who's writing what everywhere in the world and see who you could get in contact with. I mean, I know writers who can talk to book groups on Skype. Doesn't matter where they are. So
yes, I've not indulged in that yet.
Yes, yeah. but you can. I know writers who do this. And another thing that happened for me because of social media was I was interviewed at a writing conference in Boston, and I was sitting at my desk at home.
Right.
And this is all because of somebody. I think I went to their blog, and then they started talking to me, and I started talking to them. But then when they wanted somebody to explain a certain thing for their writing conference in Boston, they contacted me.
Okay, I've got to counter that. There's somebody who's heard the show, who came in to see me in the shop, lives in South Africa and runs a radio station, or runs a programme on a radio station out there, and has said they want to interview me on their radio station in South Africa, and they're going to phone up here and speak to me in England. I mean, so the whole thing just goes round and round, doesn't it? It reinforces itself. I think that's the thing, and it's like tendrils just spread all over the place.
Yes, and if you're a writer, it's particularly good because readers could be anywhere.
Yeah,
and also if you are, I mean, this show here is for writers, but if you've got a cause that you're very passionate about, you can raise awareness of it anywhere in the world by blogging or by tweeting or using Facebook. It's very, very powerful.
Well, we keep it topical. There's this young girl who's just appealed for money to help an old man who was mugged the other day, and she's now raised over £200,000 for him.
Yes, I heard about that on the radio today.
Amazing. So yes, there's a lot of power there, isn't there?
There is a lot of power.
A lot of possibility.
Yeah, the power of reaching out and
spreading the words, just moving things around.
And going back to publishing, the old way of doing this was being invited to publishing parties. So somebody would launch a book, and they would invite people they knew, and that's how you'd network. Because you'd just meet other writers and editors and agents, and those contacts were generally how you built up the people who knew you and knew about your work. Now, it's everywhere. You could meet anybody.
Okay, so I think we've established
It's brilliant. We have established it's brilliant.
The brilliance of using social media. And we're going to later on discuss actually how you do this. Is that right?
Yes.
So let's have a quick break. And you've chosen some really appropriate music for this one.
I have. It's Don Estelle and Windsor Davis singing Whispering Grass.
Thank you, Windsor Davis and Don Estelle.
I love that, don't you?
Absolutely
it's
brilliant. What was that wonderful word?
Blabbering. The blabbering trees. But that's what you do on social media. You tell someone about something you liked or didn't like or disapprove of, or anything really, and then they tell someone, and then someone else tells someone else, and it all goes round like a network.
Is that magic word, share?
Share, yes. But, so you tell it to the trees and word gets about. If you build up a big enough network.
Yeah.
But that takes time. So that's what we're going to talk about now, isn't it? How to do it.
How to do it.
Yes.
That's how to do it cleverly.
Now, you're on Facebook.
Yes.
You spend a lot of time on Facebook. I often find you going around liking things, or you're very good at making friends on Facebook. I suddenly find, oh, you know him, I know him.
It's because I'm so lovely. Facebook and Twitter and things like that, I have a lot of trouble with starting off with them. And the most important piece of advice I'll give to anybody is when they start up, make sure you choose the right name, the right identity and things like that, and how you log it in, because otherwise you can end up in a huge muddle later on.
That's a really good point about names, and sometimes you find, I don't know if this happens on Facebook, but on Twitter, you find someone else has got your name. There is a Ros Morris on Twitter, and because of that, I had to choose a different name. Now, I started off with some rather unwise names. Sometimes what people do is they...
Sorry, I'm thinking of one of your unwise names. Yes.
My very first one was actually inspired by Samuel Johnson and Fortnum and Mason. It's because I found out the name of one of the first ever confections that Fortnum and Mason sold, and it was called Dirty White Candy. And I thought, that's amazing, that's so modern. And so I thought, I'll use that as my Twitter name, because it sounded a bit racy. Actually, I despite the smirk on your face, I didn't get any indecent proposals. But
oh, shame! Hard luck, commiserations.
I think people very soon realised that all I was tweeting was po-faced writing advice. So they thought, oh no, really? Well, they saw my picture and ran away. But the point about that name was, even though it was fun and it did catch people's attention, so it was good from that point of view. It didn't really tell people what I was doing. So then I changed my Twitter name to Nail Your Novel, because I thought, well, that tells people what I'm doing. But that's a mistake as well, because really social media is meant to be personal. You don't want to tweet to a book. You don't want to strike up a relationship with a book, or even a book's character, or a company. You'd rather strike up a relationship with a person. So I eventually changed... Oh, I did have another Twitter account going in parallel. Yes, I am a bit over-Twittered at times. But I made that one by Ros Morris, because I couldn't have Ros Morris. So I put by in front of it, which seemed quite a good handle to have. Except people still just tweeted Ros Morris, the other one. So eventually what I did was I changed them all to Ros_Morris, which is at least my name. And you want people to get to know your name. You also want, with your icon... You want your icon to be a picture of your face, not your book cover or a mountain or something. You want to feel like you're getting contact with people. Yeah,
I had exactly this problem with Facebook, with confusing the shop account with my own personal account. And I had to stand back and realise that I was using a picture of the shop on my personal account.
Yes.
And so I had to change it to a picture of me, because then it made more sense. But it's quite tricky sometimes balancing it all across.
Yes, it is, and I mean also a few years ago, when a lot of people were getting onto Twitter, writers, they were being advised by publishers to tweet about their book, to put pictures of their book on their icon. But it's not really the way social media seems to work best. Social media seems to work best if it's about contact with people. And so the next question is, what do you tweet about, or write Facebook posts about, or even blog posts about? And if you're a writer trying to sell a book, as we said, not really the best approach to just wade in with my book's about this, or buy my book. Buy my book is the most awful thing you could tweet, because who's going to want to listen to it? So again, it's you have to build up just a sense, a lower key sense of you as a person, the kinds of things you're interested in. So what do you don't tweet as much as I do. I tweet quite a lot, but you don't tweet quite a lot.
I don't tweet much at all, no, although I follow quite a lot of people.
All right, so are you more listening on Twitter rather than...
Listening what's going on and trying to get the zeitgeist. There we are. Get the mood, see what's going on, and just keep in touch with a few people. But it's mainly Facebook that we use, yeah.
Well, that's it. Yes, I mean that is a valid way to use Twitter, just to watch what's going on, and then maybe use one of the platforms like Facebook if you prefer it. That's the place you go and interact with people. I've found that easier, but I mean it works. But and the two are fairly linked, aren't they? Quite a lot. You get references from one across to the other, Twitter and Facebook. Well, that's probably because you can set up various programs to post across,
cross posting.
Yes, there's a lot of automated posting, which then means that you can be visible on more than one platform.
Yes,
but you do have to watch out and make sure that if someone then replies to you, you reply to them. Otherwise, it looks rude.
I think that's really why I've more taken a watching brief on Twitter, so that I can concentrate on what's happening on Facebook. But it's very difficult. I mean, it's a question of time.
It does take a lot of time because the one thing I've constantly said during this show is that you build it slowly. So the number one mistake that people make after they've set up their account is to go on and try and follow loads of people and tell them about their books, but it doesn't work. The best thing to do is to build it gradually, and it's really good to have a website that people can come back to and find you on.
Yes,
because then that's where you decorate it with the kinds of images that represent you.
Well, the first thing I did here was build a website when I had to for the shop, so that was quite fun.
And you're in contact with quite a few authors on Twitter, aren't you? So what kinds of things do you notice them posting? I mean, Facebook.
On Facebook? There's a lot of concern about social and political matters. So not just their own books, but justice and injustice in society, things like that. There's an awful lot of caring on the part of many authors. And they pass comments on that sort of thing quite a lot. Yes.
And are they always related to the books they write?
No, not always. I don't think authors are monodimensional. They're ordinary people. You know, they have lives and interests outside their own books and their writing, or I believe some of them do. Anyway, I'll get hit for that later. But yeah, it's very, very strange. People just pop out of the woodwork on Facebook. Still, I wonder how I've got in touch with some people. But I suppose you've seen them in a conversation on a thread with somebody you do know, and make a comment, and they come back to you, and then you just get talking.
Yes. But another funny thing about it is it looks superficial, but it's not. I don't think it's superficial at all.
No.
As I've said, I've built up quite lasting and valuable friendships through people I met on social media.
Yeah.
And it's I've also discovered books that I was really grateful to have discovered, and I wouldn't have found out about them any other way. And I've found people who I've then asked back to my blog, and because of that, we've built up a friendship. And also, you get situations where sometimes people put up sometimes people post about personal tragedies, and the sense of warmth and support that you get is it's surprising how sincere this apparently trivial thing can be.
there does seem to be a great sense of community.
There is, yes.
And there's the community of writers, but all those writers have their fingers and tendrils out in other communities. So there's this huge amount of cross-pollination, a bit like Don Estelle, you know, the blabbering trees.
Yes.
Everything spreads, everything ripples out.
Whispering grass, you tell the birds, the bees.
Absolutely. So that information, what's the phrase? Things go viral.
Yes.
When suddenly everybody picks up on the same meme or the same idea, and suddenly it's international, it's all over the World Wide Web.
It doesn't have to even go viral. Viral tends to be said about something that gets 1 million hits on YouTube, but and that's usually that on the law of averages. That's not going to happen to you, but you might get 10 people talking about your book, and then they talk about it to someone else, and on and on and on. This is the gradual.
But other people who are friends of theirs will see the thread of that conversation on their Facebook page and might pick something out of it. So you'll never have direct contact with some of the people who find out about your book.
Yes,
or your
yes.
work.
Or you suddenly get an email from someone you didn't know that they were watching you, or they've been reading your posts, or they then read your book. And it's
or indeed listen to your radio programme.
Oh, indeed. But this contact is magical. But we have such a powerful tool here, and hairdryer going by, and it enables us to reach far further actually than we've ever been able to before, just by a simple bit of technology.
It's not just reaching; it's also the speed with which this happens. I think that's important. That it's here and now.
It's very instant.
It's
isn't it?
It's not a couple of months later. I mean, it can be because things hang around in the ether, but information gets out very, very quickly, and you can't control where it goes either.
No,
so
it's absolutely
I think that could be a drawback at times, but yes, it's fascinating, and it's a great tool.
So, what other mistakes do you think you made when you started with social media, and what did you find difficult?
The physical use of the site wasn't always apparent. The specialised jargon made it difficult for me to know exactly what was going on, what I was doing, how I could share from one of my sites to another of my Facebook pages, things like that. There's no real manual.
No, you pick it up
as you go along. And so you have to pick it up as you go along.
It's quite easy.
And I think that but it's a learning process. And to begin with, I was just playing around. But now that I'm using it more, I'm improving my facility, I suppose. Yeah, improving my facility would do.
And you said that you had to go at blogging, but you stopped.
It's just too time consuming.
It is time consuming.
I think I've got a way to solve that now, and so I'm looking at restarting that. But that'll be fairly simple. It'll be something just like reposting the general bulletins that we issue every now and then. But
that's a good use of it. Yes, because I was going to say, what use would you get out of it? Because in my case, I am trying to reach as wide an audience as possible, and so the World Wide Web, essentially, it's my shop.
Yeah.
I'm not always selling, obviously, but that's kind of my place, my blog. But for you who have a physical shop, you're more based in the community.
Based in the community, and so I have an email bulletin that I send out on a regular basis, 6-8 times a year, something like that. So that the idea is to then take that and post that on a blog site, so that will then produce a continuous narrative of what we've done in the shop, all the events we've held and things like that, so that people can see what we're like, what we do, what our interests are. I think that's the way to use it.
Yes, and I think there is an application for you, because we were saying society's instant now. If somebody is thinking, oh, I'd like to contact some of the bookshops in such an area, the old way of doing it would be you'd wait till office hours, you'd look up the phone book and you'd phone them. But now people work at all hours. Somebody might be sitting up at 2 a.m. finishing something. They can Google the shop and they find out exactly what they need because you've got it on the website.
Yes, I have phone calls at odd times. I have emails from people saying, I've seen that on your website, can you do this, that and the other? So yeah, I mean, just things spread all the time.
And another point to make about blogging for writers is that it can be a good way to just get practiced at writing.
Yes, I mean, it is writing, isn't it?
It is writing,
it's just
yes.
another form of writing.
Yes, yeah. It's getting used to being with the page, which is something we talk about quite a lot. Getting used to just putting your thoughts down, developing a style.
Finding a form of words that is approved of by the reading public. I mean,
yes, getting feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, some people post sections of their book. Some people post about difficulties they're having writing or successes they had because something went well that day. All sorts of things. But it's getting used to it.
I've seen authors asking for information on esoteric subjects because they want to know. I think it was you the other day.
I was
asking about what recording equipment you'd have used in the 70s or the 80s.
In the 90s, yes.
Yeah, I was going to reply to you, but that was...
But yeah, that's a really good use of... I often put up pleas for help.
Yeah,
can anyone tell me about this?
Yeah.
Or who knows about it? It's brilliant for doing research because I put up a note on Facebook and then people come back and say, oh yes, I know about that and I'd love to answer a few questions, and I've done the same. So yes, and it is a very supportive community.
So it's there, you build up a community, but it's also useful as a research tool and as a way of testing the water.
Yes,
some books, as you said, all this sort of thing.
Yes.
So there are hugely different ways of using all the social media.
Yes. Now you mentioned having a page, a Facebook page, and there's also
yes, page
Facebook
is wrong,
account.
isn't it?
Well, no, there are several
yes.
ways you can use Facebook.
Yes, I mean my personal one is an account. The shop is
that's it.
A page, I think.
Yes. So
and in the early days, that's the sort of thing that's difficult to sort out and work out what you're doing and where you're going. So there was some confusion between the two for a while. Sorry about that, guys.
Well, some of us still don't quite know when we should be posting stuff on the page or when we post it on our personal list.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
No,
but
as long as you're interested.
As long as you're
try
interested.
Try to be interesting.
Yeah.
Try to again, think of it as a cocktail party or something. You talk about things that you want to have a conversation about.
I would also make a plea for not being gratuitously controversial. I mean, it's sometimes things can get quite heated online, can't they?
They can, yes, but I mean, I've always found that people are mostly quite well behaved and well mannered.
Quite well behaved, but there can certainly be disparate viewpoints. The same thread.
Yes.
But people don't tend to swear at each other.
No,
no. They tend to say, "Okay, well, that's your opinion."
And then on Facebook, you also get groups where people can get together if they've got common interests in. There's one called British Books, which is for people who've written books set in Britain, and he's just writing something on a piece of paper, which distracted me.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, so you can find lots of communities that can help your writing or can help you get to know people who write similar things to you, and build up a network of people who might become very significant to you. So,
right, shall we call it a day there?
I think we've rabbited enough.
Tell people how they can get in contact with us. Obviously, I've got a Facebook page or whatever you want to call it. I mean, Peter Snell or Barton's Bookshop.
And your Twitter handle is?
It's
Peter J.A. Snell.
Peter J.A. Snell.
I know that because I make sure I tweet you.
Yes, Peter J.A. Snell, because, like you, I have somebody else stealing my name. So I use my middle names as well. Sorry about that.
Well, I didn't use my middle names. On Twitter, I'm Ros_Morris. On Facebook, you'll find me as Ros Morris. It doesn't matter if you've got the same name as
And
someone else.
aren't you a
on
Ros
Facebook.
Morris writer somewhere as well?
Oh goodness, that's my.
We've forgotten that one.
Well, that's my Facebook page, which
That's
I
your
still
Facebook
really
page,
don't know
yes.
how to use
Yeah.
properly.
No, this is one of the problems, isn't it?
But some
But
of
anyway.
the things you do though because you want to claim your name.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that was why
like
I
like
did
your
that.
domain name.
Yes.
But there we are. You can contact me via the bookshop website. You can contact me through Surrey Hills Community Radio. You can contact Ros through
Facebook, Twitter, and just Google me and you'll find
try Ros Morris. You'll find her.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we will end with a song, and I thought it would be fun to hear. Heard it on the grapevine, but it's not the version that you are expecting.
Not Creedence Clearwater.
Oh, very good. And it's not Gladys Knight and the Pits.
Not Gladys Knight.
No,
Ah.
it's the Kaiser Chiefs.
Oh, that'd be interesting.